Okay, now we're on.
Great. Good morning. It's Monday, April 26th. This is the Tufton Borough Board of Selectmen's meeting. Let us start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First, do we have any public comment?
No.
No from Joe. Okay, great. Next is review and approval of the minutes from our work session on Friday.
Nothing jumped out at me.
I didn't see any additions or corrections.
I'll move approval of the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Chief Thompson, come on down. Thank you.
Thanks.
So as of April 26th, we've had 69 fire calls, 81 medical calls, 21 service calls, 2 special details for a total of 173 for the year, 18 gas burner inspections, 5 oil burner inspections, 10 life safety inspections, and 1 wood pellet inspection. The hose and ladder testing that took place on 4/6/21 went well. We lost 4 lengths of 1 3/4. That would total $1,071.80 to replace. 25-foot length of 4-inch. That would be $338.95 to replace. And a 100-foot 4-inch length. That would be $725.95 to replace. And this year, when the budget is approved, then we'll look at replacing those. We did have money budgeted for hose replacement.
Okay, so let me ask you, is that money consistent with what we budgeted in that line last year?
Yes.
So you can go ahead and order that.
Okay.
Yeah, don't have to wait for town meeting on that.
Okay. As per NFPA 1962, which is the NFPA that we follow, any hose manufactured prior to July 1987 and large diameter hose without safety locks must be taken out of service. All the hose that we had pressure tested and had passed as far as the pressure standards as far as it goes. 32 lengths of the 4-inch hose, which are 100 feet a piece, had no dates on them and no locks on the couplings. That's $725.95 a 100-foot length times 32 is $23,230.40. 17 lengths of 1 3/4 hose, 50-foot lengths, which have no dates on them, and or 1985 dates. $267.95 times 17 is $4,555.15. And last but not least, we had 14 lengths of 2.5-inch hose that were 50-foot lengths, which have no dates for 1977 to 1983 date on them, is $345.00 times 14 is $4,843.30. The total for that replacement, if it was done at some point in time in the future, which we would be looking at this for future budgeting or possibly a fundraiser through the association, would be $32,626.85. We're not looking at, we're past the hose testing, the pressure testing. You know, obviously we're not gonna just take that hose out of service this year, especially with not budgeting for anything along that
So
line.
this is something you budget for next year?
It budget next year, or budget for a period of it and phase it through, or possibly do with the association fundraising. That would be a, you know, a large
So
fundraiser.
there's no retrofit, I mean, you got $32,000 worth of hose here.
Right, well, some of the hose, the 4-inch hose has been there since I started the fire department. So it's reached its years as far as it goes. Obviously, it doesn't meet the standards. You could retrofit probably buy new couplings,
Yeah.
but the cost of retrofitting it, and then all of a sudden the hose blows up on the next pressure testing, may not, because some of it's probably 30 years old or more, especially the large diameter stuff. It may not be worth. It's probably reached a stage that it should be replaced versus trying to get the couplings.
I'm just thinking if, you know, you're talking about doing a fundraising, but, I mean, to do it all in one go seems to be a bit of a...
Yeah, I don't see doing that all in one go in a year as far as it goes.
And your math on your 2.5 inches wrong. It's only $4,843. $4,830 is what I came up with. I don't know what, there's no pennies involved. If you multiply 345 by
Yeah.
14,
Yeah.
it's 4,830.
I'll make that correction before I send it to Kathy.
Yeah.
And is there a NFPA is what, National Fire Protection Association?
Yes.
I mean, do they put a timeline on this?
Well, obviously, towns can't, you know, just go out and buy new
Yeah,
stuff
it
as
is
far as
awesome.
it goes with that. So, just like our fire trucks, we have a 20-year life expectancy on them. Sometimes they go a little bit more because of, you know, whatever is happening in the town. But we try to follow it as close as possible, because if something does happen with it, someone does get injured, then
Does this
obviously
affect
they
our-
have to come back on
Or insurance rating or any of that?
it. If
Let's
some-
say we wait until next year to buy a hose.
Yeah, it's not gonna affect us right now as far as it goes. No,
Right.
it passed the pressure testing
Yeah.
as far as the hose.
Okay.
The standard just says that it would be replaced if because of the age as far as it goes, and that it
So
doesn't
these
have
locks are
locks.
more of a safety
Yep.
device for the firefighter?
The couplings that you have, when they go together, they're probably about this big. Obviously, they're a little bit bigger than 4 inches around, because the center of them are 4 inches. They snap into place. When they come out of the back of the fire truck, when you're laying the hose out, they, you know, hit the ground as they come along, and sometimes they come uncoupled if they don't have the locks in place. Or when they're attached to the side of the fire truck, if there's any twists in the hose, when that's come out, they uncouple from that.
So
It's not like threads.
It's a band
It's-
coupling.
It's more like you have these little metal sections, one on the top, one on the bottom, and they just click into place.
Yeah.
Type of thing. 4-inch hits someone in the head, as if any hose, then you have an issue as far as it goes. So we're looking at it more as a safety thing, but again, the hose has been there for quite some time. We try to keep everything in good shape, make sure that the couplings are, you know, snapped into place and holding, but
So you'll keep us apprised of your money-raising efforts?
Most
So we
definitely.
can, because probably we'll have to pitch something in.
Well, and it strikes me
Next
as,
year.
yeah, this might be, if something that toward the end of this year, depending upon what the budget in that area looks like, be an opportunity to purchase some of it.
Right.
Or put some money in the budget for next year,
Yeah.
whether we do it all in 1 year, or so that we don't have these big spikes.
Right.
That sort of thing.
And the toughest thing is that, especially with us, you know, obviously where capital improvement is a $10,000 or up,
Right.
Right.
well, that doesn't meet the 10,000, you know, length of it doesn't meet the $10,000, but you put 32 lengths together, then
Right.
yes.
Right.
The capital improvements is kind of a movable feast. I mean, I don't think you saw this, or maybe you did see this coming, but this is new to us. And
Yeah.
I'm sure it's
Oh,
gonna be.
and this is why I bring it to your attention today, is that I don't want you to go, geez,
Where did this come
you
from?
know, where did this come from? As far as, you know, want you to have a heads
Back
up,
to buckets.
especially with the $40,000 failure of the engine.
Right.
I think it'll be tough to actually look at even thinking about replacing any of that
Right.
towards the end of the year, because we've already dipped into that side of things, I think.
Okay.
Yep.
So, but just to give you a heads up of that's what we're looking at, and we'll do what we can to work on that situation, to try to make it better as we can, and to try to find a way to replace some of that.
Good.
Well, there may be some grant funding out there as well.
Right.
So get with Kathy and she can send a missile out to the grant writer, unless you know how to contact her.
Yeah, we'll take care of whatever has to be done.
Okay.
All the ladders passed testing. We did have to have 128 heat sensors. There are labels that go on the ladder that tell you that if they've been obviously in contact with heat. You know, if you have a ladder at a window, they will change color if they've been affected by a certain amount of heat. So usually every year, a certain amount of those have to be replaced as far as the sensors. And they're $2.50 a piece. So that was taken care of. Engine 4's parts for repair are 95% at the repair company. They are missing one cylinder kit and can't go forward with the repairs until they have all 6. At this time, I have no hard timeline for the repair completion. The $24,200 deposit, the paperwork for that was turned in to Diane, and she said that would come out today. So that is all set. The Molten Borough 15 engine 4 has been put in place at the Mirror Lake Station. The truck is a HME fire truck, so it's very similar to the operation of our engine 4. And I would like to thank the Molten Borough, town of Molten Borough, and the Molten Borough Fire Department for loaning us the engine until our engine is repaired. The operators of the Class A engines have been training and driver training with the truck to get used to it. But again, the operation of it is pretty much the same. Besides, ours is a 10-wheeler, and that one is a 6-wheeler.
Mhm.
The department responded to a fatal motor vehicle accident in the area of 345 Middle Road in conjunction with Stewart's Ambulance, Tufton Borough PD, Ospey PD, and New Hampshire State Police, along with the New Hampshire Medical Examiner's Office at 11:55 on 4/8/21. We've been monitoring our members of our department to make sure that the Granite State Critical Incident Stress Debriefing team didn't need to be brought in to talk with them. So far, no one wants to to meet with the team, so I would say that we're in pretty good shape as far as that goes. The first meeting for the update of the town's All Hazard Mitigation Committee will be held on Tuesday, the 27th, 2 p.m. at Central Station. Susan Slack of Lake Region Planning Commission will be the principal planner for the meetings for the committee. And the committee is as follows: Chief Thompson, Tuftonboro Fire; Andrew Shigori, Police Chief, Tuftonboro PD; Guy Pike, Selectmen, Tuftonboro; Caleb Pike, Captain, and also the Deputy Health Officer, Tuftonboro; Jack Parsons, Code Officer and Health Officer; Jim Bean, Road Agent; Matt Young, Planning Board and Business Owner; Doug Barker, Citizen; and Dave Cash of Tuftonboro Central School. And Rhonda Thompson will be the administrative assistant who will be taking the notes for that meeting. We've sent out an electronic copy of our emergency operations plan, the new copy of it, to the HESM field rep, who is Courtney Jordan. She's the new rep. Our rep that we had for many years is no longer with them, so the plan got kind of held up in the process. She will also be here for the hazardous mitigation planning in part of our meetings.
So just for the public consumption, HESM is an acronym for what?
For the emergency, basically it's the acronym for the emergency section as far as for the state of New Hampshire that does all the emergency management planning. The plan has gone from a binder that is probably about 3 inches to 4 inches thick to this. This is the newest plan. I will leave it with you so that you can look it over. It does require signatures from the select board before we can turn it in to the state. And then also there is signatures that I will collect of myself, Chief Shigori, and so on, as far as the road agent, school superintendent, emergency management director, and on, as far as with the different signatures.
Chief, that's the draft of your plan, is that
This
right?
is the draft of the emergency operations plan.
And at some point, I assume you guys, your meeting tomorrow.
Would be for this.
Okay.
And 2, this needed to be updated. So this is the Tuftonboro All Hazards Mitigation Plan. So they're 2 different plans. This one,
How do they differ?
this gives all the hazards that you might face in town, and I can give you a copy of this if you would like it, to review of what the old plan looked like. And the new plan will look just like it, but obviously there'll be some updates in it. This deals with any type of incidences that you might have in town and who to contact and things like this. This deals with if you are looking for grants down the road from the government to take care of, infrastructure as far as, like flooding areas and things like that. That's what this particular plan is.
So the other plan, is that ready for approval at this point, or are you still working on it?
The select board would need to take a look at it,
Right,
see if you see anything that that you have questions about before its signature, but otherwise it's to the point that
it's final
that
draft.
it's a final draft to be sent out. Again, it was just sent to the new state representative for the emergency management section, and she had asked if the selectmen had signed off on the plan, and obviously you can't sign off on it until you look at it.
All right, so
for that.
do we anticipate any suggested changes back from them before it's finalized?
I would say the only changes would be if we missed anything that in this particular version of it. But right now, that version is what the old representative with the state had sent us and we had taken care of.
Can you send us an electronic copy of this?
I will check to make sure that we can do that.
Then I can
Be easy to
read it at home at my leisure.
Yep.
So, is this something that we can put on the agenda for next Monday?
Sure.
I don't want to
No.
blow things up, but I think it's important that we have an opportunity to
No, this,
review it.
read what we're saying.
Yeah, right, exactly.
no,
I
the,
don't want
It-
any
it-
language
it's-
in there that says we're spending money that we're
Right.
not authorized to.
Selectmen are liable for any mistakes.
oh, you're liable for all of that.
Yeah, you're right.
No, it's not something that needs to be signed today. It's something that I had given you today because we got it printed out and
Yep.
that much further down the road. And I will, do you want me to send that to Kathy or send it to you?
Yeah, just send it to Kathy and then she can disseminate it.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Right now, it seems that we're seeing a little higher call volume that we would, as far as the different types of calls that we would see in the summertime, where the people are here, from COVID. It seemed like the boating area was really busy on Saturday. Sunday wasn't so bad. The hiking trails are still really populated as far as that goes. So people are getting out and doing things.
With respect to boating this time of year, I'll just toss in, I'm always concerned when I see boats out early in the season that people taking them out don't appreciate how cold the water is,
Right.
and that if you're operating a boat, you ought to have that PFD on before you ever leave the dock, because if you go in the water without one on, thinking, well, I'll put it on in the water, chance that you're gonna get that done
Right.
is pretty slim.
Well, one, it's tough because they're usually stored somewhere on the boat that you can't get a hold of them. And when the incident happens, you're either, tossed, or if you fall overboard, then obviously you can't take it with you.
Well, and the other thing is,
And the water's still like 40.
if I remember correctly, what happens when you go into cold water is your body pulls all the blood in to the core and essentially leaves your extremities paralyzed. There's no blood flowing, you can't move. So if you don't have flotation on and you're in the water and you can't move your arms and legs,
Right. And when you take that sudden gasp when you hit the water.
yeah,
It's tough.
Yeah, we used to have to put our arm in the water for a minute up in Maine in May
Yep.
at Hurricane Island, and you don't have any feeling at all. I mean, there's no movement at all in your hand at that point.
yeah.
Maybe not at all. We had sent out approximately 400 seasonal category 1 permits, which went out in March. The seasonal permit holders, and this is just for the general public as well as your own. The seasonal permit holder should have received them by now for 2021. A reminder for the permittees to sign both copies of the fire permit and return one copy to the fire department with the enclosed envelope. The second copy stays with the permit for proof that they have a permit when someone comes to ask for
And
it.
I heard on the radio this morning that Maine has gone into some red flag.
Actually, the state of New Hampshire has also. We shut down all burning for today because of the wind. even the campfires, as far as it goes. Tonight, if we find that the wind, stops, then we'll open back up the burning. And this is the second time this year already that we've done that.
Well, this is always a bad time of year anyway, when you got all the timber on the forest floor, you don't have any new leafing out.
Right.
So.
And when things dry out, if you do get quite a bit of sunlight, things dry out later in the day, obviously things are the right conditions for that goes.
Yeah.
Friday of last week, we went to Castle in the Clouds for a fire that was up there that was started from apparently from burning earlier in the week, but it was in a rugged area just below the castle area. It's right in the castle area. So things can happen, things can get away. So that is out there. You just need to make sure that your fires are completely out. Even if you think they are, just need to add a little bit more water to them and make sure that they are out once you've had that fire. So, the other thing that I had that Kathy had reminded me is Pier 19 airport review with the Selectmen. I don't know if that's something that you want to discuss or have questions.
Yep. And I don't know, did she provide you with the?
I received from Chief Shigori an airport site certificate from New Hampshire DOT. It says it's marked Pier 19 seaplane base and ice runway.
But you didn't, so Manaz and T.C. Wood were in to meet with us on Friday with a request that we do some alteration on the side of Union Wharf, on the pilings, the side of Union Wharf, the other side from where the boats tie up.
Okay.
Reduce the height so that if somebody brings a float plane in and wants to tie up there, it's not interfering with their with the wing or the tail on it. And so we had quite a little discussion on Friday about that. One concern that I had is to come in, so the piling's cut down so it's not a hazard to the wing. The guy ties up, so the wing hangs out over the wharf. How far over the wharf does it hang? At what height does it hang? And what impact does that have on your access to the fireboat?
Well, obviously, depending on where that hangs in, it will have issues with access, because obviously with backing the ambulances, we back the ambulances right out onto that cement.
As far as you can, right?
As far as we can, or trucks to unload. We unload everything towards that end because it's usually tough getting in between, the docks that are privately owned and the town wharf as far as it goes. There's usually so many boats in there that are trying to get in and get out that you can't go down further. Mm-hmm. So we do all of our business right at the end of our NFT lot.
Well, they had offered, the pilot who created the permit process with the state we had told them that we wanted them to meet with you as well as the chief of police and try to set up a meeting. He'd like to fly in, bring his plane over to the wharf so we can have a physical demonstration of what the impact is before we make a decision.
Right.
The other thing I noticed yesterday when I was down there, there's a set of dolphins up on that end too. The pilings that aren't really attached to the dock.
Right.
Oh, ice clusters, yeah.
Yeah. That protects them.
So I don't know that, and they're pretty tall. I don't know how that affects their thinking. So
I guess some of my concerns is that one, and I'm sure that it's probably a concern of Andy's, is one, as far as parking, We're always struggling with people unloading things there, as far as barges and, you know, just regularly, there is a sign there that says 15-minute parking only. So we run into that. If we're running a business for seaplanes coming in and out, how much busier is that area gonna be? Where are the vehicles gonna park?
So,
for the people.
all right, so this request of theirs is not to run a business from the wharf.
From what I read and from what I hear, it is. It is to sell
So
tickets
we talked
for.
about that at length, and I think we, as a board, and hopefully we transmitted it to them, we're not at the stage where that's gonna happen. So if they're gonna do seaplane rides, they're gonna do it from the Pier 19 dock.
I can tell you that there's not enough room
Well,
to you know, safely do it from the
Right.
Pier 19 dock, so they would need the town side to taxi in and actually park as far as it goes. I don't know, and that's something when we meet with them, they can tell us how they're going to actually get the airplane up to the Pier 19 side of the dock where the gas pumps are and not hit it.
I think
to
they're gonna be
unload
all the way
people.
out at the end of that.
No, that's all
The
private.
only dock she has is the gas dock. So what she was talking about was extending that to have a place for a plane to tie
I
up.
thought she owned the end of that pier.
No,
No, that's all
But
common
that,
doors.
that was examined by in the application, that gas dock is one of the alternatives, I think.
Right. Right, and what they said is they were talking about they'd have to extend that dock. Well, that's a state thing, you gotta
Right.
get the permit.
Yep.
And, so, I think we made it clear to them on Friday when we met with them, that if people were tying up, it would just be people that come in, private pilots that come in, want a place to tie up, go to the store or whatever, and
right,
Yeah.
but it sounds like, because I received a call from her, Menards, and Mr. Wood, when I was going out for one of the calls, so I
Yeah.
called them back and said, hey, I'll call you on Monday, with, you know, to talk to you further. But it sounds like they want to be in business this summer without, you know, losing the summer.
Right.
This is what I gather from just the discussion.
Well, I think the in-business portion that I got from the meeting was she wants planes coming in to go to her store. As far as the scenic flights are concerned,
that's on her.
that was
Right.
off the table.
Right.
I think that if we thought that the island there caused a lot of issues and had a lot of opposition, I think the airport is going to have the opposition from the people that purchased the island and the other side. I think you will have all of that there.
I
Just
think
because of
his permit is over by Chase Island, so it isn't really that farm. It's going out that.
right, but it's going to affect their bag, you know, as far as noise and so on and so on. The thing that I am nervous about is that who has the right of way? With all the boats that are usually there in P19, you know, they're rafting, kayakers, the beach area. It looks like the airport actually comes down across, you know, over the beach area as far as that goes, and then they said 5,000 feet, so that would have to extend.
Well, the explanation that we were given was that if there's someone in the right of way, or the airport, if you will, the runway, then the plane can't land.
The permit they got from the state is not exclusive use for that water.
Okay.
And once it lands, it's a boat.
Right.
So the right of way issues become whatever the Marine Patrol decides they are.
And I am assuming that an airplane puts off as much prop wash and things like that as our airboat.
Yeah.
And our airboat draws a significant amount of attention, and it is fairly dangerous as far as it goes. When you get up towards the pier, you got to be careful of the people that are there. And to me, we can't even get the pier, safe for people that are there in a boat. Say nothing about a plane, as far as the repairs that the town is trying to make to the dock, as far as filling in the
Well, yeah,
holes
I mean, she's
and
gonna-
all that stuff.
Even if she got all of this season for her business, if you will, she's gonna lose all of next year's season. Because next year's gonna tear the place apart.
Okay.
And, redo the sides and do all the work. And that's gonna take, hopefully we'll get it done before the bulk of summer shows up, but who knows?
Right. The other thing that I'm worried about is that, obviously, if I, as a fire chief, speak against this as far as safety-wise, how's that going to affect us as far as operation? Because I believe the store owns part of the area that we function in, as far as turnaround area there in the front. How is that going to affect us as far as them saying, no, you can't park there?
Well,
Not that would happen.
I would say don't worry about that. If that comes to that, I'm happy to address that with the
and
owner.
it's a public right of way.
Right.
Their parking lot is a public right of way. I can pull in, or you can pull in, park your car, and hopefully use the store, because that's what it's there for. But you don't have exclusive, she can't put a gate up. Or if she does, now you've got issues with the condo parking and all the rest of that stuff.
Well, I'm not saying the store side, I'm saying the gas pump side, as far as where the signs say no parking and things like that.
Right.
We have been allowed, obviously in the past, as far as in emergencies, we can obviously park, wherever needed as far as it goes. But
Well-
we can't always, we try not to take up too much of the dock area in an emergency. We try to still operate with the general public to let them get in and out if need be, unless we absolutely have to shut it down for a period of time.
Yeah, there's all kinds of emergency rules that come into play in that situation anyway.
But I do believe it's a pretty congested area in the summer, so the whole boat thing. In the wintertime is a total different, as far as the ice runway.
Mhm.
Sure that there'll be some very unhappy people that usually put their ice houses out in that particular area.
Well, that's why, part of one thing that was brought up was this idea of having some sort of public hearings.
Right.
So that the public knows this might happen.
Yep.
Does somebody have a problem with it? Because if you don't go that route, now, once it's fully in play,
Right.
you don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to complaints.
I think the public hearings are a must. Something that would be very, very good.
I guess our hope is that between you and the chief of police, we can get kind of a fully fleshed idea of the issues at hand. I'm never down there when you're out doing an ice rescue or a island fire, so I have no idea what the
Right.
congestion looks like or what the needs look like.
Yeah, medical calls.
Right.
And we try to, depending on where the call is, what island that it's on, we try to, sometimes we'll go down to the Northwood docks at Northwood's camp, because that might be a closer place to load on, and that gets everything out of the general public. Obviously, we have to leave from Pier 19, so we leave a certain amount of vehicles there, but we might load the ambulances and stuff at the Northwood dock. But a lot of times we come right back into Pier 19. So whatever amount of vehicles that we have there,
Well,
or taking up space.
As I said, I have a real concern that something is going to impede access in an emergency. And Whether you can work around it or not really isn't the issue. I mean, in an emergency, response time can make a big difference. And if, because of an obstruction at the wharf, it slows you guys down by 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, because you can't get where you need to be, and you have to work around this, that, or the other. 5 minutes may not seem like a lot to somebody that's sitting sipping a Coca-Cola.
Right.
It
is to someone having a heart attack. Or
right.
The house is burning, as far as it feels. I applaud people trying to bring business to the area and think of the different things, but I hope that they're also looking at the other side of things as far as, what else that they have to look at, as far as, airplanes. It's not just going to be the one gentleman, I don't believe, that would be coming into the airplane. It would be
No, it's not a private use.
Right. And certainly Manasa's hope is that having it available as a place for people to stop, pull up, tie up, come to the store is going to bring lots of airplanes. Now, whether lots is, one a day or whatever, but got to bring more traffic into our store, which is certainly what she ought to be interested in, and I think she's been doing a great job at building a business there. But it's all got to get balanced out, and we don't want to impede use of the wharf as it is for emergency services. And we also have to recognize that the general public has access to and uses, to a greater or lesser extent, that wharf for a variety of activities. And to make it less available, something we don't want to do like.
Chief Shigori's got his hand up.
I was looking through the airport plan, which is already approved, so it's kind of a moot thing about the airport itself.
Right.
The state's designated, but it does say private permission required.
Right.
So they'd have to, it says the pilots have to contact the store.
Right.
To,
Now, we asked,
I
asked
asked
specifically on
to
Friday.
me, sounds like the runway part of it, but.
Right. So it's a private airport, but apparently if you're flying a float plane, you can put it down any place that you want, as long as you're more than a certain distance away from the shore and hazards and that sort of thing, and you're not interfering with other boats. So, this airport is not an exclusive use area for airplanes that are controlled by her or for airplanes at all. So if I'm riding my wave runner through there and somebody's wanting to come in and land, they can't land until the area is clear.
So there's two parts of it. There's the summer part and there's the ice runway part of it.
Right.
The summer part of it really is, like you said, they can land wherever that's safe to do it, meets FAA requirements anyways, even if there isn't an airport designation. So really that boils down to us as to the dock part of it, how we're going to accommodate that if we can.
Mm-hmm.
I want to switch over to the winter part though, because I have some experience with that working in another town. It's not just the runway. If they decide to plow.
Did they have airplanes way back then?
Yeah, they did.
Just wondering.
Yeah, cloth and grass run strips. When you're landing, when they have the ice runway and they plow it, one of the things that we ran into is there's also a buffer area they have to have for safety around it. So then we ran into issues with people, they started plowing a parking area too for planes. And then was that part of the airport or not permitted? And you start getting into it, it becomes, the hard part is you see a runway, people will put their ice house out thinking I'm not on the runway, but there's still a buffer area around it. So it takes a bigger area than just the runway, if in fact they decide to plow it and maintain it. And then it becomes, are they going to plow a parking area for planes too? It ends up consuming more area than you think sometimes, And it also depends upon kind of the person running it, how willing they are to work with people. You know, we ran into a big problem with the parking area, if you will, when I was in Alton, because it wasn't part of the runway or airport approval, and one year they plowed a huge area, and you can't park, and it became a fight between the airport manager, if you will, who wasn't, way back, wasn't real helpful and easy to deal with the public. It was, instead of trying to talk to people, he would just call the police and say, there's a car out, there's somebody's out fishing in our safety area, that's a felony. Go out there and deal with it. I'm not saying, I'm sure that's not gonna be the issue here, but I'm just saying,
Well,
it's a bigger area than just the runway.
It's a potential, because, as I say, from what I read in the permit, it's not an exclusive use area. So even if somebody uses it as a nice runway in the wintertime, if somebody decides they want to put their Bob house out there,
I don't think they can.
nobody's landing there that day because there's a Bob house in it.
I don't think you can put a Bob house in it. They can cross it, that's why it's not exclusive use. They can't bar people from crossing it, but I don't think you can put a Bob house in it. It would
But I
be-
guess, I mean, three things come to my mind. First, your discussion about Alton. Maybe we need to have a longer discussion about who's giving permission to land. Because if I've got a commercial interest to get your plane down, and I can give a shit less about your boat, or your ice house, or your snow machine, then my inclination is to lean the direction of the plane.
Yeah,
I need to get that plane down so I can sell them something. The second item that probably Adam needs to deal with more than anybody is how does that affect our rescue business in an ice landing situation? I mean, you already got boats that you have to deal with, but as far as landing a plane on ice or whatever might happen there, how is that going to impact your operation? Whether it be getting to the plane or cleaning up after the plane.
I mean, incidents do happen, obviously. You see them where they all do runway, as far as planes coming down. You deal with it as you have to, and you get to it with whatever you need to, as far as, whether it's the airboat or...
It's another dimension to your training, certainly, and how you deal with aircraft.
But you hope that that aircraft doesn't affect anyone that's on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you still have to, you may have to extract somebody from an airplane.
Most definitely.
So what sort of training regimen do we need to put together for avgas or whatever else is an issue? And I guess thirdly is, when you're talking about usage of the pier, your primary usage ends at the wooden dock for all intents and purposes. You're using the cement pier.
Yeah.
So is the north side of that wooden pier at the end, is that a more appropriate place if we were to get to that juncture where we're going to allow a float plane to come in?
So the wooden pier, where our boat is attached to now, that is used on both sides by boats coming in.
The water's deep
because
enough
the
there.
water is deep enough there, but because there's not enough room on the other side, they come around to there. The area that is not used, besides like barges and stuff, is more towards the dirt section, because it's so shallow and stuff like that.
Right.
The people fish off the wooden section of it, and things like that. But we basically use the cement and wood area as far as.
It's just something that, you're going to have a discussion.
Yep.
And it's just, let's bring up as many questions as we can as we're doing it.
Yeah.
How long have they anticipated the plane be tied to that dock?
Well, again, we have parking regulations,
So
right?
that's what I'm gonna get at, we have an ordinance.
That's right, so,
That
and
says
we
it can't be.
discussed it on Friday,
Yeah.
and the fact that we do have a time limit on parking, and anything that's tied up there, whether it be an airplane or a watercraft, other watercraft, it's subject to. So the idea is not to somebody say, oh, I'll come in, tie up here, I'll be here till tomorrow, or that sort of thing.
One of the points that I brought up on Friday was, however, a boat, you can make your way out of 19 Mile Bay no matter what the weather. A plane, if the weather deteriorates and you can't leave,
It's there.
What happens?
it's there. They can't leave until the weather gets better. So how do we mitigate that?
Now, I did see in this runway that as far as plans, there's nothing planned for mooring, airplanes or anything like that, not attached to a dock.
Right.
They don't have any.
So my guess is that if they wanted a mooring, just like anybody else wants a
They have to
mooring,
apply.
you apply to the state to get your mooring. And then if you use it as a mooring for a float plane as opposed to a boat, it's probably the same thing.
I don't know that you can, and I'd love to find out that you could, just get an application for a mooring wherever and put a mooring out there. I think you actually have to have some sort of property.
Yeah,
interest
right,
in the
exactly.
shore.
Exactly.
And I don't know how they wouldn't have any property interest on our side. I don't know on the gas dock side whether they
Yeah.
have any property interest there.
I don't know how far the store goes
Right.
along that
Not
diagram.
very far,
No,
because the highway right away is.
Was there?
right there, yeah.
Yes, that's the only thing I thought it was in the winter, the ice runway. I can tell you from the other side of it, it's very popular, these ice runways, because there aren't too many of them. And I know, it's known like in the Northeast, the alt runway, it's like kind of a
Right.
cool thing for the pilots to come in on and hang out for the day. They do a fly-in, and it's quite a thing, but
Including the ones that land in the
working with
slush
the
and then
fishermen.
flip over, yeah.
working with the fishermen is gonna be an important thing, because it's not just, if they do plow a runway, it's not just a runway,
Right.
there's a buffer around it that goes,
I just remember being at, and let you all know that I'm a little bit on the edgy side, being out at Burning Man at an airstrip on the dry lake bed, and I heard a plane coming in, perfect landing, with one exception, he didn't put his wheels down.
Yeah.
And getting that plane out of there was a trick. They had to bring a truck in with a crane and all that. I don't know how you get a plane off the ice.
they've done it all, it can be done,
It
tow
can be
truck
done.
or
I'm
something,
sure
probably
it
all
can be
of it.
done, just,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a matter of what needs to be done.
And they take them apart sometimes to take them out of places.
Yeah.
A lot of times they have to take them apart. They had the one in the field in
so keep in mind.
171.
Keep in mind when you're going through this process of those training needs, of those material needs, of equipment needs, all of that is an expense that the town is going to bear. It may be a great thing, it may not be a great thing, but the discussion just started Friday. I'm looking forward to those drones that haul people.
Yep.
Not those. That would be fun.
They're great until the battery quits, right?
It's always that.
Yep. All right. Anything else for Chief Thompson? Thank you, Chief.
Let me know, as far as, obviously I'll talk with the two that are involved with that further, as I promised to.
Yeah,
Look all that.
if you need all of us, or one of us, or two of us to come down. And actually,
Sure.
Oh, I think that if they're actually going to do,
fly
a
in.
demonstration, that everybody
Yes.
obviously should see that.
Okay.
We should probably,
Like, I probably would suggest a busy Saturday, so that you can know exactly what
Yep.
to expect.
and I don't know, and this airport conversation just gets more and more protracted. I don't know whether Fish and Game needs additional space. Do they bring boats in when they collar somebody for a boat infraction?
No, they don't, Marine Patrol takes them over to
Glendale?
usually takes them over to Glendale.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or they'll take them to a close by dock if they have if it's something close, if it's like a broken down boat or something, they're not gonna
So,
drive.
you know, whether or not you need to include them in the discussion, I don't know what their needs are, other than just tying the boat up.
Okay, all right, thanks, chief.
Thanks.
See you tomorrow afternoon.
Yes.
Chief Shigori.
Our statistics still down. Although incidents are up some. We did have a fatal accident not too long ago that we're still working on.
Yeah, the fire chief mentioned that he's been counseling his folks about the Granite State Critical Incident Stress Debriefing. Is that something you guys do as well?
I'm familiar with it. Certainly it's available. I know there's other teams available too. Granite State, that's a good one. And I know I have resources, we have resources available through other, the state police. Well, there's a couple of police-oriented ones. We've also gone through, a couple of years ago, we certainly went through Breach Point Consulting, kind of talking through some of that. Everybody went to it.
Now, I'm just thinking of this incident and if it had, a stress impact on any of the officers, if they needed any sort of counseling.
Keep it in mind that I haven't noticed anything per se,
Yeah.
but
And just
It
maybe
doesn't hurt to reinforce to your crew that,
we also know that, I know of VFR, Veterans First Responders. It's a group out of Manchester that does counseling, and what's happened legislatively over the last couple of years is that counseling is now considered, confidential. That was a problem before, that, you could talk to a medical professional,
Right.
but a peer counseling group like the Granite State team and some of these peer counseling groups were not considered confidential. And
It was
some
on the
people,
permanent school record.
yeah.
so it could, if you were involved in an incident that could lead to lawsuits or criminal charges, if you will, or potential for that, you might not want to be able to participate, or it could impact your employment even as a lesser degree. Because people may shy away from it in the past because they thought it would hurt their employment, but that has been now made confidential, so it's was in the Union Leader over the weekend. They had a couple articles about programs that like Manchester stood up, but we worked with, Dave worked with Chief Goldstein in Franklin and with the chiefs of police when I was president. We set up a couple things, and then we continued it afterwards with Breach Point and some other programs like VFR that we can work with
Just,
to help them.
try to overcome this notion that it's unmanly to have a reaction to a death. It is a significant event.
Yeah, it's become, well, I would say I didn't go to ICP last year. The year before at ICP, there was a significant amount of training on that. And they're learning more about it. One of the things they talk about is, post-traumatic stress is usually considered through, like, in a serious event. But one of the programs I went to was by a psychologist, police psychologist, who said he thinks also chronic stress can be
Right. The
Has
cumulative stress.
cumulative
Yeah.
chronic stress. And he talked about, he had a pretty good program talking about that. And had hoped to get him to come up to New Hampshire. We haven't worked that out yet, but we have definitely stepped up the programming. I know state police did a couple of, they took Breach Point and a few others and really stood up something. So that hopefully it helps. We, as a state, just before we brought Beach Point stuff, one of the reasons I pushed for it was because we as a state had a higher, because we have a smaller population base of police, we had probably a higher suicide rate than New York and Chicago. But obviously when you have 38,000 police officers in New York and they hear about 8 dying, it's a big thing. But we had 4 that year, so we only have about 4,000 or 5,000 in the state. So it's on a population basis, we were worse off than that, if you will. So that's why they're standing up a lot of this stuff now, and they're learning more about it. So one of the things that's happened, obviously I enlisted training. We're starting to do some, I got some online training. The academy hasn't really opened up yet again. They've started to do a few things April 1st, but not much. A lot of it's still on their calendar to be announced. They're starting to open up a little more, but we're doing some that I've got contracted, that we've got access online, webinars, if you will. We did the one on de-escalation and duty to intervene, and it was, they were excellent. And so I felt comfortable in going beyond that with some of the search and seizure and some of the investigations that go beyond that. So we've got 6 months, I think, access to that.
And speaking of training, is your administrative assistant on board now, or?
She is on board. She's doing a good job trying to get everything caught up, so
Okay.
we're working it through.
And I think I can speak for all of us, don't shortchange the time you need at the beginning, because I know you're gonna need more time.
I told her that she could do up to 34 hours, because then that triggers into the full-time benefits and stuff. So I told her she'd do up to 34 hours to get caught up, and the last couple of weeks she hasn't been able to do that. She started like a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago now. She hasn't been able to do that, but she plans on this week working some extra hours.
Good.
So
Yep.
we'll get things going there. And I think I finally got the last cable for the 2020 Tahoe figured out finish the setup of that. The video company kept sending us the wrong cable. Drove down to Portsmouth to have it installed, and it wasn't right again. So I think last
I'm
week,
getting used to the fact that it takes you a year to get a cruiser in service.
well, it's not, the cable thing has just been, they sent me the wrong cable twice. Then they sent me a bill. I'm like, no. I'm not paying that. Because we already paid for the cable, and it was the right cable we were supposed to be paying for, not the wrong one. So anyway, I think we finally last week got it straightened out as to which one the cable is supposed to be, and hopefully it's shipping so it can be installed. So that'll be finished finally. Other than that, we're getting to see a little more court stuff from last year's coming through the system. Tomorrow I was supposed to have a ALS hearing for DWI from earlier this year, but I fought it, asked for a director's review, and filed like a 3-page motion as to why it shouldn't have been scheduled at all, and it got taken off this calendar. And it was agreed that it shouldn't have been scheduled, that they didn't follow the process to get their hearing that they're supposed to follow, the attorney didn't. So, but we're starting to get busier with some of these cases from last year, at least in the court side of it. So, that's what's.
Okay.
That was good, Linda.
You got anything, Guy?
No item?
Okay.
Now, my question's for the chief. Chief, do you have any information on the 4-car accident on Route 16 yesterday? Do you know anything about that?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad I didn't go out.
Yeah. All right.
So,
Anything else for the chief?
just, I mean, as you You may notice one of the call-outs was for a domestic, which was with a shooting. That was March 1st.
Right.
We worked with state police on that, and they ended up taking it over because they actually caught the guy. So they caught the guy and interviewed them, so it didn't make any sense for us to start taking it over, since they would have had to have done a report, give it to us, so we could go to the court with that. So.
And do we have any sort of finalization on the new police facility grant process? Is that?
I know even last week Phil was sending some stuff back and forth with USDA.
Okay.
There is a question about whether or not where we are with bids, if we can do them, because they say no bids can go out until they approve it. But then Phil says, what about if we do bids to get a price and then rebid it afterwards?
So let's stop calling a bid to get a price of bid.
Yeah.
Let's start calling an estimate
Yeah.
or something other than that.
So and some of the stuff he had to fix, there was a bathroom issue he's supposed to fix. And then there was, because the ABA, the difference that I understand it, ABA is an Accessibility Building Act, which has to do with federal buildings. There's not a lot of difference in the ADA, but a few things. One, you don't get any exemptions. Every place has to be accessible. And you have to show on the plan that there's swings for the wheelchairs. It's any federal building or buildings paid with federal grant money or federal loans. And so you have to show some of the stuff that wasn't necessarily shown before. We had the table in the break room became smaller, so you could show that there's room around it for a wheelchair. And it probably was a little larger room anyway. Some of the drawing, it was kind of fit, but when you swing out chairs and stuff, it wasn't going to fit very well. And it had different, how many, 50% of the shelving can't be over 4 feet, or storage can't be over. And it meant that places even that police officers only would have access to had to still be accessible, like the evidence room, for example. But, so I think the only thing he had to do was something with the bathroom, to finally complete that. And then he had to put or equivalent for everything on the bids for equipment. We can't have sole source.
Mm-hmm.
We have to say, this type heating unit or equivalent.
Right.
So but he had done it like in a note on one page, but
They want to
they want it on every item, just so it's clear that it's not just
When did we apply for this grant originally?
about a year ago.
Okay, so he's known for a year that this process is in play. It's now 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks from town meeting. I don't need a lot of, geez, I didn't know this was gonna happen. I'm not saying that to you, I'm saying that to our architect. We've known for a year we're gonna go through this process.
We talked early on about that it needs to be, one of the first things we were told was ABA versus ADA.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't need to know that because
No,
I'm just a.
I'm saying he was told early on about that.
People in the profession need to know that, and I'm sure.
It was said early on, he was aware of that early on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, disappointing.
I mean, it's like all of these contractors that he's getting estimates from, because I'm not calling bids, hopefully understand that this is all gonna be based on Davis-Bacon, because we're getting federal money.
yeah,
So if all of a sudden that becomes an issue in May, Grandpa Chip's gonna get a little pissed off, because we've known for over a year that we're looking for.
does that apply for a building, for a building? I know it applies for roads.
No, it applies for any government
Any
grant.
government grant, okay.
The public needs to understand, because they always say, well, let's get a grant. When you get a grant, you have to follow the rules, regulations, restrictions, requirements of that grant.
Right.
And they need to know that, period.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah, this is a lot of this has been between the two architects, so I've been a kind of on this, because I'm not a person that knows ADA
Right.
to the fine degree that the professionals, as you say, should know it.
Right.
This has been back and forth between them,
Yeah.
and I'm just not kind of on the sidelines saying, we need to get this
All right.
fix it, make it be what it has to be.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Discussion, I'm happy.
Yep,
So, I mean, but early on, it was clear, right from the beginning, ABA was,
And how did the, just to change, how did the drug drop off at the transfer station
we
go?
didn't get as much as we've gotten in the past, we got about a half a box. We'll see, it's up there now to go to the rest of the way for destruction, but probably
It's
half a
just
box.
Officer Gillis up there, or?
Yeah, she did it.
all right,
All right.
very good, thanks, chief. All right, let's go to signature file. So we have, first up is an easement deed for,
Mount Pleasant.
Mount
Mount Pleasant.
Pleasant, that's right. And this is, you're recusing yourself because
I
of
am,
your,
because I'm a winner.
yeah, because you have other involvement. So this is,
It's just between you and Guy.
yep. So I'll move that we sign this deed for the town of Tuftonboro.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
So Lakes Region Conservation is buying the property and giving it to the town of Tuftonboro for conservation purposes. And they're going to oversee the management of the conservation deed.
Right.
That was for the county.
Yep. So next up is a yield tax levy for 30-3-9 and 43-3-4. And the amount of, someplace, earlier.
On the bottom of the front page.
Yeah, there's $1,589.13.
I move that we sign that.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
There's two signatures, aren't
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I should have had it marked and I missed it. Yep. All right. We do not have any action items for today's
Nice.
meeting. Yeah. Do we have some correspondence? And we have talked about some of this on Friday. Board of Adjustment has a hearing on May 4th. Setback variance for a deck in the lakefront zone. We have a wetlands permit by notification for a seasonal 6 by 40 foot dock on a property with a street address of 3 Allen Road. And we have a notice from Consolidated Communications that landline telephone dialing in the state of New Hampshire is going to 10 digits. And that has started now, and
So
with the final date of compliance of October 24th. So every time you pick up the phone and dial, you have to use the area code.
Is that every call is a toll call? Is that how they're going to do this?
No, what I read someplace is that toll calling is no different than it was before. So whatever you've called in the past, it's a local call. But there's a national new suicide prevention line that starts with, it's a 3-digit number, I don't remember what it is, 988. And the problem in New Hampshire is we have a local exchange in the city of Portsmouth that has that number. So in order to differentiate, One wonders if they
So-
couldn't change, if
so
they couldn't change the local
let's
exchange.
change Portsmouth, let's change the whole state.
Yeah,
That makes
well,
sense.
and it's not just, it's throughout the country.
Or so they say,
Huh?
or so they say.
Well-
Is it happening out there in the middle of the country?
Yeah, it's changing in the place where our place is in Indiana. And Consolidated has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 states that they operate in that are changing. So basically, the whole country's gonna be 10-digit, sounds like. And how unfortunate, but it is what it is. Hopefully.
I remember when our home phone was for, it was $7.98.
Yeah,
Say something to an operator.
yeah, well, yeah, sure, I remember, within the local exchange, you just dial the 4 digits. If you're going outside the exchange, you get to dial 7. And
As a youngster, my grandparents lived in the former Fred Sargent house in Melbourne, and they actually cranked the phone and talked to Mary Brody.
yeah. All right, Selectmen's update.
Okay, I'll go first.
Yes,
I've started on collecting some information on the history of 19 Mile Pier. I wanted to ask how, and this is in no way judgmental or pointed, have we gotten close on the non-public? Have you had a chance to look at that?
no, I haven't.
I haven't.
I think we should set a goal of, let's say, the end of May or the 1st of June
Yeah,
to do that.
That's reasonable, sure.
Historically, we've tried to do it every 6 months. I think last year we kind of fell back a bit.
yeah,
I think it's, actually, if
the
you
more
just go through-
frequently you do it, the easier it is, actually, to stay up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to stay out of it. And some of it we can just not ever do again because it's gonna be that way.
Yeah.
And that's about it for me.
I'll be attending the hazard mitigation meeting tomorrow. That's my update.
Good. And I don't have any update since we met on Friday. So, any other business?
I don't think so. Welcome, Jane, to the operation.
Yeah,
Did you get it all?
Yeah.
Good,
good. Any Joe input?
In Kathy's absence, we have to do something in the future in reference to getting this thing on YouTube. I've been, how can I say this, amiss of showing up. I'm supposed to do it with Karen at one time. We have to sit down, people have to be more involved. You got enough on your plate already to put it on YouTube, so we're not gonna wait a week. I think what we did on Friday in reference to the airplane and the docks and so on and so forth need to be published so people can get a heads up
Yeah,
real quick on
definitely.
some of these things. But that's all I have really.
So, did you have a suggestion on how to make that a smoother process?
Yes,
Okay.
I put myself in the middle, which I didn't want to do, asked to show up along other interested parties to learn the operation. When we go down to the office, we need the password, the setup, so on and so forth. Anybody can do it from their house, literally. But we need to update the YouTube account because it takes a while to put it on. So when Kathy comes back, we'll open that up for discussion with her.
Yep. Okay.
Actually, I'll go into the town office and read it, and then I'll leave it there.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Anything else?
Make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
All right,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.